On Zombie Reddit, today's story is:
I won the lottery and my wife abandoned me. Now she lives with her parents while I am a millionaire. 3 months ago, luck smiled on me in an unexpected way. Against my usual custom, I decided to buy a lottery ticket, something I rarely do. To my amazement, it turned out to be the winning ticket. However, my initial joy quickly turned to bitterness when, just a few days later, my wife decided to file for divorce. Our marriage was already going through a turbulent period, with frequent arguments over the last few months. Her behavior towards me had become particularly hostile, making the situation increasingly untenable. The source of our conflicts centered on the financial situation of her parents, both retired secondary school teachers. Years before retiring, they had made some unfortunate financial decisions that resulted in the loss of a large part of their retirement savings. Although they were not completely destitute, their funds were insufficient to maintain their lifestyle. As a result, they had depended significantly on our financial support in recent years, allocating a considerable portion of our combined monthly income to their upkeep. During the 5 years of our relationship, 3 of them as a married couple, I had been gladly contributing to the well-being of my parents. As a kind-hearted person, helping them initially did not cause me any conflict. However, the situation changed drastically at the beginning of this year with the arrival of our first child. The new reality of parenthood led me to propose a reduction in the financial support we sent to their parents, considering the significant expenses involved in raising a baby. In addition, I felt the pressing need to start building a savings fund for our own future. The challenge of maintaining our standard of living, raising our daughter and continuing to provide the same level of financial support to her parents was becoming untenable. When I raised this concern a couple of months ago, suggesting a modest reduction in the monthly allowance, my wife reacted with indignation, triggering a heated argument. Although we managed to reconcile temporarily, when I tried to bring up the subject again a few weeks later, her reaction was equally negative. This pattern had been repeated for quite some time, always reconciling for the sake of our daughter, but this time she crossed a line from which there was no going back. We were already in the middle of a dispute when I received the news of the lottery win. Even though we hadn't spoken to each other for days, my emotion prompted me to share the news with her, hoping that this unexpected fortune could help us overcome our differences. However, her reaction was completely indifferent. She simply nodded and continued with her activities as if nothing had happened. This attitude hurt me deeply, but I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. The next day, she informed me that she would be visiting her parents together with our daughter, arguing that she needed to take some time away. What seemed like a temporary visit turned into a definitive separation. 3 days later, I discovered that she had blocked me from all forms of communication. Shortly after, I received the divorce papers. During this time, I tried to visit them at their parents' house on multiple occasions, but every time I showed up, they pretended not to be home, ignoring my calls and knocks on the door, leaving me in a humiliating position for long minutes before I finally gave up and left. Despite my attempts to save our marriage, she had made an unshakable decision, prioritizing the lottery money over our relationship. In her divorce petition, she demanded 75% of my lottery winnings as child support, completely disregarding all the years of support I had provided to her and her family. The magnitude of the amount requested made me realize her true intentions. After receiving the legal documents, I decided to change my strategy. Instead of fighting to get her back, I would fight against her unjustified demands. She had chosen her path, and I would choose mine. After several days of reflection, I consulted with various divorce attorneys and hired the most successful and, naturally, most expensive, trusting in his ability to protect my interests. Initially, we tried to resolve the situation through a court-appointed mediator, but she was inflexible in the negotiations. Together with her lawyer, they argued that it was up to me to give in to her demands simply because we had a daughter together and because she earned less than me, as if that salary difference were my responsibility. After weeks of failed attempts at mediation, the case went to court, as she was convinced she would get everything she demanded. However, my lawyer and I had prepared thoroughly and, over the course of several hearings, we managed to dismantle her unfounded accusations about my alleged emotional unavailability and the alleged mental torment I had caused her. It became clear that these allegations were simply strategies fabricated by her and her lawyer to manipulate the situation in their favor and secure financial compensation that was not due to her. Once the truth was exposed, the situation took a complete turn in my favor. As a result, she could lose everything. The house will become exclusively mine, both vehicles will be under my ownership, and she will have to return several of the jewels received during the wedding, particularly those that are family heirlooms. Furthermore, given that the difference in our incomes is not as significant as she was trying to make it seem, the alimony will be considerably less than what she was claiming. Currently, she is trying to argue that she needs a higher alimony payment in order to continue helping her parents. However, my lawyer and I have a clear position. For the last 3 years, we have been sending them substantial amounts of money every month, so it is hardly credible that they have not managed to save some of that help. Considering that they have probably accumulated these resources, we are sure that they can now support themselves financially with their increased savings. Although there are still a few weeks to go before a final decision is reached on all these aspects, my parents have been asking me to reconsider my position. They want me to grant them more generous alimony, motivated mainly by the compassion they feel towards my in-laws. I have tried to explain to them that, despite all the support I gave them over the years, they did not support me when I was trying to reconcile with my wife. Therefore, I feel no moral obligation at this time. I firmly believe that she deserves the consequences of her actions, although my parents do not share this perspective. Am I the bad guy for refusing to give in to the financial demands of my future ex-wife, even knowing that she needs to help her parents? Addition, to clarify some important points, the house was a wedding gift from my parents and grandparents, so it is legally registered in my name. My car is also completely my property, acquired with my own resources. Her car was a gift I gave her for her birthday last year, but the title remains in my name as we never bothered to transfer it. This is why we are disputing ownership of both vehicles, as they were bought with my hard-earned money. As for the house, as it was a gift specifically to me from my family, I have no intention of giving it up. I understand that wedding gifts are traditionally considered shared property, but at the moment that is not my priority. Regarding the jewelry, my position is clear: they are family heirlooms and, since she is no longer part of the family, they should be returned. Update 1. I want to express my sincere gratitude for all the support and comments received. It's been a couple of days since my original post, and I've had an important conversation with my parents. I explained to them that their overly sympathetic attitude seemed insensitive to me at this point. I expressed my dissatisfaction with trying to make me feel guilty for standing up for my rights, especially considering that I gave my wife multiple opportunities to resolve our differences. However, she chose the path of greed, seeking to keep everything and going to the extreme of trying to defame me in court with the sole aim of obtaining 75% of my earnings, a completely unjustified claim. I asked them to try to see the situation from my perspective in order to understand the extent of the emotional damage I was experiencing and the reasons behind my actions. They replied that they did empathize with me, and that was why they had not questioned my decisions regarding the house, the vehicles or the jewelry, limiting their concerns solely to alimony. They tried to argue that since I have a daughter with her, she could show some leniency for that reason. However, I reminded them that child support specifically for our daughter was already in place, so that aspect was duly covered. Seeing that they were still showing some resistance, I decided to have a deeper and more sincere conversation with them. I shared with them the intense pain I had been experiencing over the last few months, describing how, despite the frequent arguments, I had always held out hope of saving our marriage. I never contemplated the possibility of separating because my love for her was genuine and deep. However, for her, the only motivation necessary to abandon our relationship was my winning the lottery. I explained how she literally left the day after she heard the news and cut off all communication with me. Even now, our only interactions are limited to the moments of handing over our daughter at the weekends, and I suspect even this is a mere formality to maintain a favorable image in court. She has not had the dignity to look me in the eye and offer me an explanation for everything that has happened. After so many years together, this lack of respect is particularly painful, especially considering everything she had done for her parents. And they, in turn, turned their backs on me when I most needed their support. They did not even try to mediate a reconciliation, but instead fully supported her decision to abandon me and try to keep my money. Given this reality, why should I show compassion towards them? During this conversation with my parents, I unexpectedly broke down and began to cry, releasing weeks of pent-up emotions. Expressing everything out loud made me aware of the depth of the pain I was experiencing. Seeing me like this, my parents immediately changed their attitude and began to console me, acknowledging that they had not properly considered the emotional impact of the situation and that they did not intend to cause me any more pain. They allowed me to vent for a few minutes, which I really needed. After this moment of vulnerability, I felt significantly more relieved. The truth is that, although my friends knew about the situation, I had been avoiding talking about it too much so as not to allow it to become the center of my life until it was all over. I intentionally kept myself busy to avoid thinking and talking about it, as every reflection brought pain. I didn't even want to discuss it with my parents, and obviously I couldn't share these feelings with my daughter. As a result, I had been internalizing everything and trying not to think about it, But obviously, this strategy also had its consequences. The reality is that, no matter how much I try to hate her now, I find it impossible because the love I felt for her was real, and it wasn't so long ago that everything was different. Although it seems like an eternity, I am aware that it is not, and now I am faced with a completely transformed life, struggling to adapt to this new reality. Every time I think about the divorce and how unpleasant everything has become, I wish I could turn off my mind and not think about it again. Unfortunately, this is my current reality and I cannot escape it. The only thing I can do is face it, even if it is extremely difficult. My parents' disapproval was the last straw, as it was the last thing I needed at the moment. However, I am glad I had this conversation with them, as I really needed their support at this difficult time. If I had chosen to distance myself from them because of this disagreement, I would probably have regretted it later. Fortunately, we were able to clear the air, and they apologized for causing me additional stress, assuring me that they would always be by my side. Their understanding and support have been truly valuable to me. At the moment, I find myself in a state of total uncertainty regarding the outcome in court. Although the circumstances seem to favor me, experience has taught me that nothing is guaranteed until the process is definitively concluded. This situation keeps me in a constant state of stress, and although I have full confidence in my lawyer's abilities, waiting for the final verdict is proving emotionally exhausting. What disturbs me most is being aware that this whole legal process was triggered solely because my wife decided to abandon me after my lottery win, with the sole aim of getting as much of the prize as possible. Update 2. Several weeks have passed since my last update, and yesterday we had another court hearing. Although the session went well, my wife and her legal representative managed to prolong the process for another week. However, I can see that we are approaching a final resolution, and I am quite convinced that they will not be able to delay the proceedings any longer. Last night, when she came to drop off our daughter, something unexpected happened. Normally, she leaves immediately after delivery, but this time she stayed, which forced me to ask her if she had anything to tell me. Despite the tense and uncomfortable atmosphere, I could tell that something was bothering her, and she finally expressed her desire to have a conversation about our current situation. I was surprised by her request, but I agreed to listen. Fortunately, our little one was already asleep, so after putting her to bed in her cot, we set about having our conversation. She began by offering a general apology and revealed that her real purpose was to try and negotiate with me directly. She explained that her feelings towards me had been deteriorating due to our constant disputes, and that when I told her about the lottery win, her frustration intensified because she had expected me to propose using that money to resolve our financial conflicts, especially regarding helping her parents. As I did not mention anything about it, her resentment grew throughout the night, until the next morning when she had made the final decision to leave. However, she now recognizes that she made a serious mistake and wanted to express to me that I did not deserve the treatment. She admitted to having acted selfishly and cruelly throughout this situation. Although she understands that I have no obligation to consider her well-being or that of her parents, she decided to risk requesting an increase in child support, arguing that it would be of great help to her and her family. She explained that she had been spending considerable sums on legal fees and that after the divorce she would have to live permanently with her parents, as well as needing to buy a new car. With so many financial worries on the horizon, she wanted to avoid the economic aspect becoming an additional burden. I had prepared myself mentally for this moment, so I replied without hesitation that none of this would be happening if she had not chosen to abandon me. I explained that, unfortunately, her decisions had led us to this situation, and that at this moment I could not feel empathy for her or her parents, just as they did not feel it for me when they blocked me before the divorce. All I could offer her were words of encouragement about a better future, but without changing any of the current terms. I expected her to respond with hostility, but instead she burst into tears, lamenting how so many years together were ending in such a bitter way. I couldn't tell if her tears were genuine or manipulative, but I preferred to remain silent so as not to appear insensitive. I refrained from comforting her, remembering all the tears I had shed myself with no more solace than that of my family and friends. After a few minutes of crying, she tried to appeal to our role as parents, suggesting that I should increase the child support for the sake of our daughter, to which I replied that I was already providing the agreed child support and did not consider it necessary to do more. When she argued that the amount was not significant, I made it clear to her that this was not my responsibility, as it was the legally established amount. Furthermore, I reminded her that her salary was only slightly less than mine, so it was unreasonable to expect me to cover all the expenses, especially considering that she could perfectly well maintain her current standard of living with the agreed pension. I pointed out to her directly that her real frustration lay in not obtaining 75% of my earnings as she had planned, which would prevent her from accessing a higher standard of living. I did not hold back in expressing my opinions, as her attitude was irritating me considerably. My frankness infuriated her, and she accused me of being despicable. Although she tried to deny my claims, the truth was evident in my words. The conversation became increasingly tense, culminating in her hurling insults and accusing me of being ruthless and cruel. She expressed regret at having tried to negotiate personally, a suggestion from her lawyer, and accused me of being the same miserable tightwad as ever, expressing relief at being divorced. I chose not to respond to her provocations, and she left swearing. I felt relieved for having maintained my firm position and not having given in, as I had done during so many years of marriage. I could not forget that the only reason I had suggested reducing the support to her parents was for the well-being of our daughter, and her disproportionate reaction to that proposal only confirmed that I was not to blame. Although for a moment her tears almost moved me, I quickly recalled all her previous actions and any feelings of guilt vanished. I am aware that she tried to take advantage of any residual feelings I might have had towards her, but after this encounter, I believe that those feelings have been definitively extinguished. Although I wish I could say that once the divorce is final I won't have to see her again, our daughter together means that we will have to maintain contact during our weekend exchanges. I anticipate that it will be an uncomfortable process at first, but I am confident that we will adapt over time. Honestly, I look forward to the time when our daughter is older and I can modify the agreement so that she spends half the week with me, not just the weekends. Although that moment is still a long way off, for now I must accept the current situation. Having my daughter with me comforts me, although it saddens me that I cannot offer her the perfect family life that I imagined when she was born, a dream that vanished with the arrival of the divorce papers. However, I am determined to provide her with the best life possible and to ensure that her mother can never alienate her against me or use her as a tool for manipulation. Although I recognize that it is a bleak thought, after witnessing her manipulative attempt with tears today, I cannot help but completely distrust her. I feel fortunate to have maintained my resolve in the face of her emotional tactics. Update 3, I apologize for my absence over the last few weeks. This time has been dedicated to the final phase of the divorce proceedings, as well as catching up with numerous accumulated work responsibilities, which prevented me from updating before. The main news is that the divorce has concluded on my terms and we are now officially separated. The legal processes have concluded, granting us both our final freedom. As expected, she is keeping her distance and is clearly not satisfied with the outcome. Surprisingly, I received a text message from my ex-in-laws expressing their desire to maintain a relationship with me despite the end of my marriage to their daughter, even extending me an invitation to dinner. Recognizing this as an attempted manipulation, I politely declined the invitation, explaining that I preferred to keep my distance from their family, especially considering the recent divorce and the fact that my ex-wife resides with them, which could create uncomfortable situations. Despite their insistence, I stood my ground, as I could not forget how they turned their backs on me when I really needed their support, pretending not to be at home during my attempts at reconciliation with my wife. These actions are something I cannot forget or forgive, so I stood by my decision not to see them. Since then, my interactions with my ex-wife have been limited exclusively to the times she brings our daughter on weekends, meetings that she keeps brief and efficient, which I appreciate as it avoids uncomfortable situations. Emotionally, I still find myself vulnerable, but I am focused on moving forward. Although dating is completely off the table for now, I am dedicating my energy to other activities that keep me distracted and help me improve my quality of life. The unconditional support of my friends and family has been invaluable during this process. Even in the professional sphere, things have progressed positively, which allows me to visualize a new beginning, especially with the upcoming accreditation of the lottery winnings in the coming weeks. I maintain optimistic expectations about my future. Update 4, it has been 2 years since my last update, and I am pleased to report that the situation has improved significantly. My professional career continues to thrive and, after receiving the lottery winnings, I made the decision to set them aside entirely for my daughter's future, keeping them intact except in case of emergency. As for my daughter, I am about to get more time with her thanks to a change in the custody agreement, a decision that seems to benefit both parties. The new arrangement states that she will spend half the week with me and the other half with her mother, and I will also stop paying child support due to my ex-wife's upcoming marriage. Indeed, I found out through mutual friends about her recent engagement, an event that was kept discreet until its official announcement on Instagram earlier this week. Apparently, their relationship has only been going on for a few months, which seemed a bit hasty to me. This situation caused me some concern, mainly because this man would be part of my daughter's life, which motivated me to have a conversation with my ex-wife, something unusual in the last 2 years. Despite the initial discomfort, she assured me that her fiancé is a person of integrity. The fact that he is the heir to a family business empire probably influenced her decision, but I refrained from commenting on it. My only request was to meet him personally, which resulted in a dinner where I was able to confirm that he did indeed seem to be a sensible person. Satisfied with this impression, I expressed my good wishes for his future. Although I will not be attending the wedding nor do I wish to, I felt it was important to get to know him for the sake of our daughter's well-being. In all sincerity, I am happy for her and her new relationship with someone who apparently better meets her financial expectations. As for me, I am also in a good place. My current life, far from being unsatisfactory, fills me with gratitude.